Welcome to a muzzled chat. Today I am psyched. I'm feeling good, and the pre-chat went really good with Craig here. He, in fact, is a godsend, I view, because for the longest time on this platform, there's quite a few preparations I wanted to provide for you listeners. Craig here and his wife, kind of a family owned and operated business, has provided so many solutions, but even beyond just products, he's bringing a level of expertise, knowledge that I hope to really highlight in today's episode. Hopefully by the end, you'll really see the value to the products he's providing, but also the importance for all of us to get more prepared on certain levels, because there's just some basic things, folks, in these troubling times that are better to have and not need than need and not have. So with that being said, Craig, I welcome you to a muzzled chat. How are you doing today?
I'm doing great. Thanks for having me.
It is my pleasure. So, fun fact for the listeners, that I just met you at a recent gun show, and I'm not going to lie, you blew my mind a bit. You just know so much about ham radios. I mean, I can't even do it justice. I have a ham radio and it's been pre-programmed, but it's just all stations. So there's really no value to it because I haven't been licensed. I haven't put in the time and educated. And I know there's a lot of individuals out there essentially in my position that they're not too worried about the licensing, because come a day of trouble, it's kind of an emergency. Like the legalities are going to matter if the, communication blackout type of thing. But there's a level of educating to properly.
Can I partially interject here and maybe
Yeah.
correct some of that?
Oh, 100%. Run with it.
Everybody remembers Katrina, for example.
Okay.
Literally became a nationwide event, even though it was primarily in the southeast. But with all the logistics and everything else that were going on, and I have many friends of mine that were part of the Cajun Navy, and they would call up and say, hey, and this was months, years in advance of Katrina. Hey, we're going to buy some radios, and we know you do programming that's good for anywhere in the country. So can you program for us down here in Baton Rouge? And I go, yeah, no problem. And they would buy radios, we'd program them up, box them up, ship them off. They were happy. I don't ask, and if they volunteer, that's great, but I don't ask if they already have their ham license or if they're even planning on getting their ham license. I just assume that if they don't, they will. But what I want to let everybody know is that in the case of an emergency, there's kind of a two-part test that the FCC always does. Number one, is it life or limb, that kind of emergency? And if the answer to that is yes, you go on to part two. And part two of the equation that determines whether or not you get fined or not is, did you have any other means of communication available to you rather than jumping on, for you, an unlicensed
Makes sense.
It could be a police radio, it could be a ham repeater, whatever. Right. And if the answer is yeah, I had my cell phone and it was in range and it had coverage, but I thought it'd be a lot cooler to grab the cop's, handheld radio because he was shot and I would call it in, FCC takes a real dim view of that. And I realize for a lot of people, that's going to be very upsetting to hear, but they do.
It's good information.
One of the things I would caution people on is, don't think that when the Skittles hits the fan, that you're going to grab a pre-programmed radio, whether we do it or your buddy Jimbo does it, and jump on a repeater and no one's going to care, because those repeaters can be remotely monitored from states away. And if there's unlicensed traffic going on that repeater, they have the ability to do more than just shut off the repeater. Because a lot of people think, oh, well, they're not going to shut down the repeater because that would take it down for everybody, and they won't do that. You're
Right.
right. They generally don't do that. But they have the ability to remotely change PL tones, DCS codes, all kinds of interesting stuff that if
Wow.
you have a pre-programmed radio that you obviously don't have your license yet, and therefore you're just going to use on that great linked repeater system in wherever land,
Yes.
that great linked repeater system will change, and it'll change on the fly. They don't even have to be there to do it. And suddenly your $100, $200, $500 radio is a brick.
Right.
So understand that with as easy as it is to get your ham license now,
Yes.
or if you want to just start out and take baby steps, send in $35 and get your GMRS repeater license.
Aren't there some stations on the ham that are for non-licensed personnel, but that would be limited and there's not many repeaters, so it wouldn't be very beneficial. It is in everyone's best interest to get the licensing.
The minute you say the word repeater, you need a license. You either need a ham radio license or you need a GMRS repeater license, one of the two.
Okay.
Now, if you want to work what we call simplex, point to point, this guy with his radio talks to this guy with his radio, and if you're in range to each other, wonderful.
Right.
Okay, but if this guy ends up going out of range, and right over here, for example, and I don't know if you can see this or not,
Yep.
right over here, there's a mountaintop repeater. Now, they can keep going maybe 100 miles, and this guy can still talk to his buddy. But the minute you say the word repeater, you either need a GMRS repeater license or you need a ham license. And trust me, I know I got a lot of calls after Katrina. People were very upset because the ham guys got on the repeaters and said, you need to leave, you're not licensed. And they would change things. And everybody that has a license understands it and says, oh, okay, we're changing to DCS, D261N. Boom. And the guys that aren't licensed go, I have no idea what that meant. And I don't know how to change it anyway. So therefore, this now becomes a scanner. It's a listening device only. It'll still hear the repeater, but I can't bring it up anymore.
Wow.
So it's incredibly easy to get your license, one or the other, or both. Like I have both. My wife and I have both. She has her amateur extra. So do I. We share a GMRS station license. GMRS and I know a lot of guys in the GMRS world hate this term, but it really is a gateway drug into ham radio, because here in Arizona, we have about 60 GMRS repeaters within the state. Many of them are considered closed repeaters where you have to join the group and pay monthly or yearly money to be a member of that group and use their repeaters. Other GMRS repeaters are wide open. As long as you have a license, you're welcome to use it. Ham radio is the same way. We have a certain percentage, maybe 10%, and the rest of them are wide open for anybody to use with a license.
So you said GMR is kind of the gateway, you said?
GMRS, which is General Mobile Radio Service. And if you want to remember it, just think of GM and Radio Shack. So GMRS.
And just for educational purposes, how easy is it to get, that licensing for GMRS?
GMRS, you literally, and we have a three-step guide sheet that we give people when they buy GMRS radios or have us program GMRS radios for them.
Okay.
And it's a piece of cake. You follow the instructions. The FCC website is not the easiest to understand, but with our sheet, you kind of get walked through it. You send in $35, and usually within a day or two max, you'll get an email back, and they'll say, "Congratulations, James! You're now, in my case, WRQS 630." Boom! There's your station license. It's good for 10 years. It's good for anyone of your immediate family that lives with you. So your grandma in Pittsburgh, who's not living with you, doesn't count. She needs to get her own. But at $35 for 10 years, I mean, it's literally a penny a day.
Yeah.
You get it. Now, if, like I said, here in Arizona, we have about 60 GMRS repeaters. We'll contrast that with ham radio here in Arizona.
Yeah.
We have 364. We're adding more on both every month. So will GMRS eventually catch up? Maybe. But one of the challenges to GMRS is they only have 8 repeater pairs nationwide.
Okay.
So they're having to do all kinds of interesting things programming wise to have 10 or 12 repeaters on the same frequency not interfere with each other in different areas of the state. And it's the same. The same is true everywhere you live. I mean, I don't care if you're in Texas or Oklahoma or New York. In ham radio, by contrast, we have literally tens of thousands of repeaters, and we don't have the issue.
Which makes long range. You can queue up people in Australia and pretty much all over the world with a ham radio. So there's extreme value there. Now, I'll actually want to back up a bit, Craig, before we dive into maybe the details on the licensing of the ham and some of the details there. Let's actually talk about kind of the why behind you're doing what you're doing and what you found to be the best solutions. Now, I understand the best solutions for certain individuals is situational. Obviously with those in where money's not necessarily a thing or a problem, they could buy up a bunch of the sat phones, disperse those, and that may be the easiest solution for them. But for folks that don't want monthly subscriptions and really higher out of pocket, the ham radio is a great option. But to take a minute and touch on, as we've covered on a lot of episodes, it's clear to me the evil will go to any lengths, essentially, to continue ruling over we, the people. And I know with this information age, that's why they've tried so hard on censorship. That's why they've tried so hard buying out news medias and social medias and pushing the propaganda, calling everything else a conspiracy, just trying to control and manipulate the information. So with platforms like this, challenging their narrative with so many other free speech platforms challenging their propaganda, I personally feel communication blackouts, EMP threats, all of these are ongoing, growing threat. So come a day of blackout for me, I feel another one of those really extremely important preparations we could do. Basically, what are people going to do when their cell phones don't work? And you can put a level of preparation and organization into, all right, family, friends, this is where we're going to meet up, and all that's good. But if anyone, has an issue or something like that and communication's down, you're going to be in a world of hurt. So communications, no matter what, could very well be a life-saving course of action and planning to take, but also more valuable than you could have all the other preparations. You could be sitting on mountains of food and water and ammunition and gold and silver and the whole nine. But at the point you got to organize a move. I mean, there's just so many situations we can't even go through all the hypotheticals where communications become crucial.
Well, imagine, if you would, if the folks on the Titanic radio room had at their disposal what we have today, how much faster all the other ships in the area could have steamed towards them and saved thousands of additional lives.
That's a good point.
And the Titanic may still have sunk, but it wouldn't have sunk, with 1,500, 2,000 people on board.
Right.
And, to your point, when 9/11 happened, another great example, we had, and I say we as ham radio guys, we had a lot of ham radio repeaters on those two towers. just
Mm,
like Nextel, just like T-Mobile, just like AT&T, just like Sprint. We had a lot of stuff up there. And when the towers fell, physics didn't play favorites. We lost our repeaters just like they lost their cell phone stuff.
right.
Now, it took them months to get cell phone tower equipment shipped and installed on different buildings, obviously.
Hmm.
Um, how long do you think it took the ham radio guys in the New York City area to get the repeaters back up and running?
I'd
Took a while.
imagine, I'd imagine a few days
You want to re-guess?
quicker, few
Yep.
hours.
You want to re-guess?
No way, no way. It was less than that.
15
Minutes,
minutes. 15
15
minutes.
minutes.
Yep.
Wow.
Because they use technology that we in ham radio think nothing of. To us, it's SOP, it's standard operating procedure.
Okay.
We can take them, not all mobile radios, but we can take a lot of mobile radios, like the one over here behind me, that has a feature called crossband repeat. And we can say, oh, guess what? We're going to take this and we're going to take some batteries, and because a lot of the power was out in the buildings, and we're going to take some antennas and some coax, and we're going to go up in an elevator that's still working to another tall building that's maybe 3 blocks away from the Twin Towers, and we're going to reestablish our repeater. And it took them 15 minutes.
Wow. That shows extreme value.
Well, and it also
And
says, from a practical standpoint,
yes.
again, we have 364 repeaters currently in Arizona. There's over 22,000 nationwide.
Wow.
Not one of them, not even one of them, is government owned.
See, that's huge. That is
Big.
huge.
That's big. But
Yes.
let's pretend the worst case scenario pops up and the government decides they're going to send up a squad on every mountaintop in America with repeaters, and we're going to take them all down. We're going to remove the antennas. We're going to take away the coax. We're going to make sure the power lines are cut, blah, blah, blah. They're going to have to leave that squad there, because if they don't, guys like me are going to take radios like that, and we're going to go, oh, guess what? Mount Ord is down. Mount Ord is a mountaintop repeater in the area here.
Right.
Let's go up there and figure out what's wrong. And when we get up there and we realize, oh my goodness, look, the antennas are gone, the towers
sabotage.
gone, everything's gone.
You just
We'll
reinstate.
take stuff out of our trucks and we'll rebuild it. It might be a temporary deal, but guess what? It works. And
I believe that, because I know individuals up in Heber and Show Low that they've created their own even private like communications and stations and repeaters. They started geeking out with it, but they're legitimately educated, and there's extreme value to those levels of preparation.
Well, and again, having the ability, because there's all kinds of issues that can create emergencies. I mean, we can have man-made emergencies, terrorism, what have you.
Right.
We can have natural disasters, forest fires, whatever. In some areas of the country, earthquakes and tornadoes and hurricanes. I mean, all of those can be disastrous for the community that you're in.
Right.
We here in Arizona, at least in southern Arizona, don't have a lot of that. But what we have instead is extreme heat. You know, I look at my watch right now and it says it's 104 degrees outside. For us, that's spring. For a lot of folks in the country, they would literally die at that. And we all kind of laugh and we make fun of it. Yes, it's hot, but it's not as bad as 114.
Right.
You know, or 120. We have heat issues here, but imagine if you break down in your car and you're on some Bufu, Egypt roadway miles away from a cell tower, and especially if you got the kids in the car, you have a real issue.
Yes.
Having a radio that I can grab, even a handheld radio like one of these 10-watt units behind me, that I can grab and I can literally talk 100 miles or more away to a mountaintop repeater and get help.
Right.
To me, that's huge. So it's not always a terroristic type scenario that people need to worry about, because yes, that could happen. It's absolutely possible. And
Right.
God forbid if it does. Um,
Hmm.
but there's a lot of Mother Nature disasters that are also quite likely, probably more likely, at least in some areas. Those are the things that you kind of have to watch out for. Like, I, for one, would never live in the Pacific Northwest. And it has nothing to do with their politics, although that's an issue.
Right.
It's the fact that 80 to 90 miles offshore, they have what is called the Cascadian subduction zone, that on average, it's like every 300 years. I'd have to look at my paper. But on average, every 300 years, they have um, the North American fault that holds up the North American continent fighting the Juan de Fuca fault, and it slips. And when it slips, it sends out a wave of water. I mean, it's not only do you get a 9.2 earthquake, which is bad, way worse than anything in LA, but it sends out a wall of water 400 feet high at
Wow.
speed. And the only reason it's not 400 feet high when it hits the West Coast is because we're only 90 miles away. But the guys in Japan, they're going to get absolutely slammed. And we have historical evidence that this has happened hundreds of times in the past. So when I
Wow.
go up and do a show up in the Portland area, like Seaside, that's one of the things that keeps me, one eye open at night. And my wife loves it. She's a beach girl. But me, I'm constantly trying to make sure I'm listening for the waves, because when the waves stop, I know I got a problem.
Right.
Uh,
Wow.
so there's all kinds of things that ham radio comes in as an advantage
Yes.
for. I mean, one of the fastest growing segments of the hobby are women, because they like the security that it brings,
Right.
because they are out in the middle of nowhere. Yeah, cell phones are much more reliable than they were 20 years ago, but they're still not 100% reliable. Look at the AT&T scenario just a few weeks ago.
Right.
When it happens, it's nice to be able to reach in the glove box and grab a radio, or if you are lucky enough to have a mobile radio, you grab the microphone and you start talking to people that could be 100 miles or more away. But even like when we do shows, it's a big advantage, because if I'm driving from point A to point B and my wife says, okay, we're an hour and a half away from point B, wherever that is, I can jump on the radio, or she can, because again, she's licensed as well. And we can talk 100 miles ahead of us and talk to the guys on the repeater, or gals, because there's a lot of women in the hobby now, and say, hey, we're coming into XYZ town, and we're going to spend the night somewhere around there, but we're getting kind of hungry, and we're tired of, I'm sorry, McDonald's, Wendy's, Burger King, all the fast food joints. We've eaten that,
Poison.
for days at a time, and we're tired of it. So is there a restaurant you could recommend that,
Hmm.
is good quality food, reasonable price, that you guys eat at? And 9 times out of 10, not only do they jump on and tell you where the great places are to go, but it's like, well, you know what? Wife and I haven't had dinner yet either. Why don't we meet you there? Why don't you give us a call on a repeater when you're 20 minutes out?
Wow. That's
And
cool.
you meet a lot of great people. I've got friends all over the country that not only do I still talk to on the radio, but like you said, when I do a show, I did a show up in Salt Lake City, in Sandy, Utah, a few years back. And I had to set this up in advance because of the time zone difference. I was talking to a friend of mine in Melbourne, Australia, on a handheld radio.
Wow.
In ham radio, we consider that, like I said, that's just everyday stuff. But to the folks in that audience, that was like black magic. They were like, what? I mean, we bought every radio we could find at Walmart that said 35 miles, and we never get more than 35 acres. How in the world are you talking to guys in Melbourne?
Right.
And you have to explain to them there's an infrastructure in ham radio that doesn't exist. So not only do you get the benefit of the world's largest fraternity sorority, there are roughly 750 to 780,000 hams in the U.S.,
Wow.
and several million more worldwide. it's a wonderful hobby to be into, but you get a lot of benefit out of it that isn't immediately apparent when you first get into it. I met a VP from Sony Electronics through ham radio.
Well,
So lots of good things come out of the hobby, and a lot of them you don't even realize until you're into it a year
right,
or two, and then you go, "Wow,
right.
I had no idea I could do this."
Well, you brought the extreme value with a lot of your scenarios and situations that you brought up. Yeah, just extreme value to that infrastructure.
Uh-huh.
So even EMPs, worst case scenarios, even if some of these systems in fact ended up fried, there's such a vast, as you kind of said, fraternity or sorority built out that it would just 15 minutes or whatever time later, there'll be workarounds. Like
It takes
it's
me longer to get to Mount Ord than it does for me to fix Mount Ord.
right. So with that there should come great security. The only caveat is the licensing, the time. It's not much of a cost. It's just time and educating. But everyone that I've known that really dipped their toe, maybe not their toe, they dipped their foot in it. They continued to submerge and get well rehearsed and educated, and they love it to the point they're traveling like you and they're actually using it for kind of everyday situations. So that is really cool. And to be in communication with someone like you, and for anyone getting started, I'm elated because for so many, there's extreme value to that. Because sure, you could hop on Amazon and you could get products that Craig here would advise you. You might guess right, you may not. He's done the research and pretty much to the best of his ability and being, I mean, how many years in on doing all this are you now?
Uh, this July will be 46 years.
46 years. So he has 46 years of experience and expertise in this field of communication. So he did mention for the listeners of this podcast that want to up their communications at the point you were to order any radios through his webpage, that he would actually set you up with the programming and then unlocking the device itself for free, because some of them now, where before they didn't have that limitation, it kind of a red flag goes up for me, is like, why are they putting these limitations on these
Well,
communication?
there's always idiots out there that ruin it for the rest of us. I don't
Mm,
care what it is, you know. Um,
right.
some yahoos would, get on, and I get this a lot at shows, and particularly gun shows when I do those. People will come up to me and be like, "Hey, man, with these radios, can I mess with the man?"
Right.
And I know what they're referring to, and I go, "Well, yeah, you can listen to the man, yeah." Well, no, I mean I
So,
want to mess with the man. I
the
don't program that in.
right. So the programming you typically charge like 25 bucks. I don't know what you charge typically for unlocking,
Well,
but
it's normally 35 to unlock the radio, so
wow.
that the radio goes a lot more places frequency wise.
Okay.
Um, and a lot of people want that. Sometimes because they actually belong to the Mars Cap groups that are out there,
Okay.
which is military or Civil Air Patrol, which is the CAP.
Okay.
Um, and they are just outside the amateur radio bands, so the radios can work there if they're unlocked, so they can. And then we usually charge either 25 to program a radio with frequencies, or
Wow.
35 for a mobile radio because it's more work. But for your listeners to the podcast, and I don't
Okay.
know how long we'll do this, but for a reasonable period of
We'll
time, just
try it.
test
Yeah.
it out. Anybody that puts in the unmuzzled chat code on checkout, or until we get the code established, which we'll try to do in the next day or two, they can just type in, unmuzzled chat in the notes section on their order when they send in the order, and we'll do that for free.
That's awesome.
It's really interesting when you have a radio that is not only programmed,
Yes.
but you'll get the printout sheet as well. But the
That
radio
is
display,
huge.
the
Yes.
radio, like we've talked about Mount Ord a couple of times. Well, there's
Yes.
4 repeaters on Mount Ord on 4 different frequencies, owned by
Yes.
4 different clubs. Again, none of them are government. I could tell you, like tonight, James, if you want to listen, you can jump on the 147.36 Mount Ord repeater, 9 o'clock, or what we call the 2100 net, and you can listen to people checking in from all over various states, primarily Arizona and New Mexico, but sometimes they'll check in even further out.
Whoa.
But on our display on the radio, it won't say, unless you want it to, it won't say 147.36. That'll be hidden. What it'll say instead is ORD, ORD 736.
Wow. So it'll help with the
right now
navigation.
it's already
Yeah.
on the Mount Ord, mountaintop, and that it's the 736 repeater on
Yeah.
Mount Ord. It's not 692, it's not 696, and so on.
Now,
You have 364 repeaters in Arizona. I find, this is my personal belief, that it's easier when you can see that it says, Lemon, for example, 682. So we would know that's Mount Lemon in
Mount
Tucson.
Lemon. Yes.
And you wouldn't try to bring up that repeater if you're in Phoenix trying to get a hold of somebody. Why
Yeah.
would you waste your time doing that? Because even if you get it, they're in Tucson 100 miles away.
Right. Wow. That is extremely valuable. As I've been around some ham operators and they programmed out my units, and it's all the numbers. So until I get educated, I wasn't provided any list printable sheets or anything, I need to go through your page here.
As far as I know,
yeah.
And I could be mistaken because I don't check everybody every day, but as far as I know, we're the only ones doing that. Now, there was another guy that was talking about doing something similar, and he may have. When we program a radio, and again, you can be in Pittsburgh or Phoenix, we don't care.
Okay.
But the Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania repeaters are going to be different tone-wise than the Phoenix repeaters. It's kind of important, like, if you got relatives back there, that their radios are set up and programmed for their location. Without it, I mean, if I send you out a standard programming list and every radio I ship is the same way, that may work here, might not work worth a crap in Pittsburgh. So having the ability to do that, but I'm going to give you another little hint too. If you go on our website and you'll see up at the top, there's a center block that's empty. That's our search bar.
Yes.
If you type in, you can type this in either way. You can type in HTO, or you can type it out, and it's called Ham Test Online. That's a training. Well, actually, it's 3 different training classes we offer that's internet-based. We will guarantee this. No one else does this. We will guarantee you that you will, if you take that class and actually make a reasonable effort to study, that you will pass and get your ham license, or we'll give you your money back.
Wow, that's awesome. So for all the listeners that want to start plugging around as we're continuing the deep dive on ham communications, and then hopefully we'll get into some more of the things you provide, because you really are a one-stop shop on preparation. Folks, you could simply type in the search bar off-grid gear, the number 2, go.com. That's off-grid gear, the number 2, go.com. And beautifully laid out, I must say. And with that search bar, it's making it very simple to navigate. I love how you have the chat box down here too, so you could directly get in touch basically with Craig himself. So it's really cool that you're customizing these radios anywhere in the nation. You're dealing with all the states, and you're able to really hone things in for people. This is one of the reasons why folks basically stayed away from even taking this preparation step. and so many I know are gearing more so towards the satellite, but
And we do that
all,
too. So if you want to become a satellite customer of ours, we're happy.
but it's like only one of them out of all their family, or one or two of them out of all the family, can get it. So how beneficial is that really? You know what I'm saying? So
Well, it depends
it's
too. It depends too on the
yeah,
individual. Like if you got Grandma Jane who's 93 years old and says there's no way I'm going to study for 6 or 7 hours to get my ham license.
right.
Don't care. I'm never going to do it. Great. Okay. So for Grandma Jane, you get some type of satellite system. Now we happen to like the ACR Bivy sticks because it's two-way satellite messaging, and it's far cheaper than anything else out there satellite based. And I know because we do them all. It's on sale this summer for $199. It's a one-time payment. You pay $20 a month, and again, there's no subscription contracts, no activation fees. So let's say you, James, were going to head up in July to Alaska, trip of a lifetime. Great. There's places, and I don't care if you drive or fly, but there's places once you get there that you'll have no cell phone service at all.
100%.
But with the Bivy stick, which weighs 4 ounces, I mean it's half the size of my calculator, and
Okay.
it weighs 4 ounces. You would call them before you leave and you say, okay, I want 1 month of coverage. And they go, okay, $20. And they hit your visa up. Boom, you're done. You're ready. Now, when you get there, you have the ability to send and receive two-way text messages. And the way this works is it utilizes your cell phone, and you Bluetooth back and forth between each other. So you can
Wow.
type your text on your cell phone. You send that to the Bivy stick. The Bivy stick sends it up to the satellites. It gets delivered around the world, and bingo shazam, now your Aunt Jane gets an email on her phone
Perfect.
or on her laptop and says,
That
hey, Aunt Jane, made it okay, everything's fine. Or if you happen to be in Texas instead of Alaska, you can send Aunt Jane a message and says, hey, when my wife is on her way, tell her to bring more beer. It's an emergency. We're almost out. Because in Texas, that would be an emergency.
yeah.
And
That's
I find that for $20 a month,
right.
with the ability to turn it off,
And you can shut it off at any point.
at any,
Yeah.
um,
And then fire it back up at any point.
exactly, I'm geared to go. And again, you can go on the website, you can type in Bivy stick. It's all in their world. It's all one word, BIVY stick,
Okay.
and boom, you'll see that. And you could buy the Bivy stick by itself. Right now, it's $100 off for the summer. I mean, I'm a big fan of, we should create a stupid hiker law and should be national, because every time I find how many hundreds of people have to get called out on search and rescue teams, and I work with a lot of those search and rescue teams, you're taking people away from their family. It can be a dangerous scenario, because if that person doesn't see or hear that snake while they're looking for you, they can get bit. They
Okay.
can fall off a cliff. It's all because the hiker doesn't take any preparedness precautions before they go off. They think, okay, I'll grab my one bottle of water, and off they go. Well, that's just a recipe for disaster. And if you're going to do that, if you at least have some level of communication preparedness, you're so much better off than 98% of the folks that go out there. Oh, by the way, here's a quiz question for you,
Okay.
if you're ready. There's approximately 331 million people in the United States. How many of those people do you think, in one way, shape, or form, have a reasonable level of preparedness?
Oh, heavens. A percentage of the U.S. population have a reasonable level of preparedness.
Yeah.
Not enough.
Well, no, I
Uh,
mean, that's a given. But how many would you say?
oh my gosh. 10%.
I'll give you my answer, and then I'll tell you how I arrived at that.
Okay.
But you want to guess first?
10%.
Oh, I wish it were that high.
Really not even close, huh?
No.
Oh my gosh.
We had a preparedness little group meeting last night, and we got several new hams and a couple of new upgrades. A couple of them went from technician class to general class, and one of them, well, actually two of them, but one couldn't make it. Two of them went from what we call zero, nothing, to technician. So they have access to those 22,000 repeaters around the country now. So I thought it'd be kind of fun to bring in a little chocolate cake, which we did. And I went to the local grocery store and I said to the girl, I said, can you write something on the top of this for me? Sure. So I looked it up, and you can Google this yourself. Again, 331 million and change in people in the US. Google to see how many of those are ham radio people. And the reason I chose that is because we've been saying this whole podcast how important it is for communication. So in my mind, yes, you're right. You can have food and water and guns and ammo and all that, but if you can't communicate when you need to the people you need to,
right,
you're essentially alone. So with that in mind, I said, okay, how many of those 331 million are ham radio operators? How many have their license? And the answer is approximately 750,000. So when you divide the 750,000 by the 331 million, it's 0.0022%. And I don't mean 2%, because 2 would be 2.0. It's 0.0022%. So 750,000 seems like a big number until you compare it with 310 million.
Yeah.
So in my mind, less than 1,000, 2,000ths of 1% of the population has got some level of communications ready to rock and roll if the worst case scenario happens.
I'll admit, even with all the preparations we've done, some of us have picked up ham radio. Some of us have gotten our licensing. Some of us haven't. So we haven't, my direct family, we haven't gotten prepared enough. I mean, how many of the listeners could say the same? It is crucial that we take these steps now. Just like we said, better to have and not need. But there have been experts speaking out on even solely the invasion that is happening with the border crisis. And they have stated that terrorists are here. I don't mean to just freak anyone out. They're like, it's not a question. It's a fact.
Question of how many?
Yes, it's a fact that terrorists are here, that evildoers are here, that, I mean, you could just see we're an occupied country. It's not on behalf. There's so many things. So communication on a mass scale for all of us, it is crucial that we get educated and we come up with viable solutions individually for our situations, period. And we got to take this deadly serious today, like right now. Now, I like how you're presenting lots of different options. So sat phones only really communicate with sat phones. So they're only really beneficial if you're providing everyone with the sat phones, then you're pre-testing.
No. I mean, I can use a sat phone to call a regular home phone or a regular business phone or whatever. But to your point, if the regular cell phone network is down,
yes.
If the home phone network is down, you know, then you're right. The only way I can communicate with somebody else via satellite is to go satellite to satellite. Now, I've got satellite equipment. Trust me. And if you want to, or your listeners want them, hey, call us.
You have it. Yep.
But if you don't have a DoD credit card or checkbook, you know, if you're not Jack Ryan, where you can say, hey, do you take a check for that $20 million aircraft or whatever he bought? If money still counts, you know, and if your wife doesn't constantly tell you, oh, honey, get whatever you want, I'm not blessed with that. Okay.
Right.
So I have to look at the money I spend and go, okay, does this make sense?
I like to stay away from subscriptions, me personally. And that's where I actually, versus if
it's the only one out there that doesn't have a subscription. I don't care if you go to Iridium, Direct. I don't care if you look at Global Star. I don't care if you look at Spot. I don't care whose you look at. Garmin, whoever. And we do them all. Everybody else but Bivy Stick wants a subscription.
That's
And
awesome. Okay, so that you have that provided. So once again, the Bivy Stick, it's great for that scenario you brought up, like Alaska, and you're out there and your cell phone, and you can activate before your trip, so you just know. But come a day of trouble, things are getting crazy, then everyone essentially would need one of these, and it looks
well,
as
I mean,
though
but again, see, you can use it in everyday world stuff. Like my
right.
wife is a photography buff, and I now have to say, yes, her photographs have been used in RNC websites. They've been used in books and magazines. She sold photographs. She still continues to sell photographs, and she does a lot of nature photography. Well, living here in the Phoenix metro area, desert can get hot, but
Yeah.
also desert can be dangerous. There's
Yep.
stuff that slithers. There's stuff
Yeah.
that, goes like this.
Yeah.
And I told her, I said, listen, sweetheart, I'd really like it if you promise me that you're always going to go with a friend. I'd really like it if you would take, I don't care, your choice, either a programmed radio, I prefer the 10 watts because you can talk a lot further, or a bivy, or a satellite phone,
Yes.
and your cell phone, because I
Right.
don't ever know where she's going to be.
Okay.
So if you take that, and oh, by the way, I also would really suggest, and she has, that you also take something that goes bang, and we can
Yes.
debate back and forth what's the best scenario. And she's a really good shot with her GP100. So the
Glad to hear it.
first 2 rounds are 38 snake shot, because I'm more concerned about stuff that slithers. But the next four after that are hand loaded 357 Magnums, and it'll
Great.
put a flame out about 12 inches long out of that barrel.
Wow. That's awesome.
So if she runs into a cougar, and I
Yeah.
mean the four-legged ones, not the ones that you find.
The mountain lion cougars.
Yeah, the real cougars, not the ones you find at the bar.
Right.
I could tell you a cougar joke, but I'll leave it for another scenario.
Yeah.
She has the ability to not only defend herself, but should she get injured or worst case attacked or bitten and kills the snake, now she can call out for help.
She has the ability. Yeah. It's so crucial. I know for me, I mean, so there's pros and cons.
Yeah.
To all of them. I personally, I drag in my feet, and I get so many are on educating themselves on the ham, but I'm still seeing more value to ham because
even if you start out at GMRS, okay, there's if your local GMRS repeater, and let's say it gives you 25, 30, 40 miles of distance, depending on where it is and how it's set up. If that's enough for you and everybody else in your immediate family and friends that you're concerned about, you might stop right there and you'd be okay. And you'd still be ahead of 98% of the rest of the country.
That's huge.
But if you say, wait a minute, I got relatives in St. George, or I got relatives in St. Louis, or I got relatives again in Pittsburgh, how do I get a hold of them? And for me, it's a really good feeling to know that and I don't think it's going to happen, but if an earthquake happened here in the East Valley where we live, I can get a hold of people. I mean, if the cell phones are down and or overloaded, I can get a hold of people and let people know that we're okay, or check on my wife, because if I'm here at work and she's at home, that kind of thing. I can do that long before the Red Cross shows up. And I like having my own ability to do that.
Right.
Because in my mind, the only time the good guys arrive before bad things happens are on TV shows and movies. And I am my own first responder. I don't count on somebody else to show up and save my butt. I'll take the help if I get it. Absolutely. I'm not
But
stupid,
you
but I
see
don't
so
count on
many
it.
examples now where we just really need to take those preparations. Yeah, with the defunding and of police and so many things that it's important that we just take those precautionary steps and are prepared. I mean, our very lives could be at stake. So the
Yeah.
GMRS is the baseline thing to look into. Now you were
It's the gateway
stating
drug for
over
radio.
the 40-mile range, roughly, then they ought to look into ham. Let's just dive into ham a little bit. So you were saying on your web page that you have a crash course and a
Yep.
way that you basically are money back guarantee is to passing because it's a test. What's the cost to the test?
Well, the class is normally $29.95. We have it on sale for $24.95. Again, if your listeners buy a radio with the class, we'll make the class $20, you know.
Wow. Okay.
So,
That's
and they can call us on our 800 number if they have any questions or if they want to do it the old fashioned way.
okay.
And, like I'm going to be in Williams this weekend at a gun show. So if
Yes.
anybody there is listening, we'll be there. I'll be back in Flagstaff for the
You
Hamfest
know,
up.
that's actually perfect because then on an individual level, they could walk through their scenario. This is what I'm looking for. And you very directly could give them the options. This radio will do this. This radio will do this. Out of these three, like this is what we're looking at, or because you have a whole assortment.
Oh, yeah.
People could get drowned with this. And that's where also Craig is invaluable with his over 40 plus years of experience on really helping us hone in and maximize our time to become effective and efficient with this so we actually end up with viable solutions. It's
Well, I
just
got a guy,
crucial.
I got a guy that lives in Parks, Arizona. You know where Parks is? It's halfway between Flag and Williams.
Okay.
He bought a 10-watt handheld radio from me. I programmed it. We shipped it up. He didn't have his ham license yet. And I'm doing a show in South Mesa in December where it's cool enough and you can be outside. Chamber of Commerce weather. And I had the same model 10-watt radio with me. And I was talking to him on the phone and I said, hey, do me a favor. I said, bring up the Mount Eldon Flagstaff repeater. So he did. I said, okay, that's tied into a system we call RimLink. It links half the state. I said,
Okay.
I'm going to use a repeater on Mount Ord. There's that Mount Ord again.
Okay.
And Mount Ord talks to Mount Eldon 100 miles away.
Wow.
So when I key it up, I'm standing, out in this farm field doing a show, talking to or calling him on the radio. Okay. Now, he didn't have his ham license, so he couldn't legally answer me, but I'm still on the phone with him, and I can hear my audio coming out on his radio. And he had 3 or 4 guys there. And they were like, what? You can talk from Mesa to Parks? I go, well, actually, I can talk a lot further, but you're in Parks. So that's all I needed. Well, they ended
Wow.
up, all 4 of those guys ended up calling me up and ordering the same radio and
Yeah.
having it programmed the same way. And
What did they have?
in Williams.
The Baofeng?
Oh, no, they have the Ocean KG UV9H, which is a custom-made radio for us. We have a couple of custom-made radios that you
Okay.
won't find anywhere else. That's one.
Wow.
Because
And
we work with the manufacturers. Like in the case of the 9H radio, it took me a year and a half to get them to agree to make that radio for us.
this
I
is
wanted certain
huge.
specific things in it
Right.
that I wanted 4 or 5 things in it that you could find one in one radio and one in another radio, but you couldn't find everything in one. I wanted everything in one.
Well, this has been insanely informative. Hopefully, nothing overwhelming because the reality, this is the value. It's not just a webpage selling you products. We're tapping into Craig's years and years of expertise, vetting out good products, customizing products, building out programming, lists that provide, and then you can personally speak with him to get the solutions you're looking for your situation, whether it's ham, whether it's GMRS, whether it's satellite radio, and there's multiple options there. You have basically gone through the gauntlet. So this is the one-stop shop there.
We do the
I
same with our power requirements, our solar panels, our food.
That's where I wanted to shift into a bit here, that off-grid gear to go. They have solar power, lighting gear, tech gear, survival gear, food, survival food, and it looks like it's all competitively priced. And it's interesting because even regarding the solar, I remember how you were even explaining how so many are just ending up on these with the Amazon paperweights essentially, because they just aren't providing the power when they need to charge and things to that
Well,
nature.
there's two questions that I always tell people, whether they buy them from us or they buy them elsewhere. There's two real easy questions you have to ask. I don't care whose it is. Number one is, can you use the unit and be charging the unit at the same time?
Right.
Now, to us, that's common sense. Of course, you can't. No, you can't.
Right.
A lot of the units out there will tell you, and they put it in their legalese, so you can't sue them. You have to
Unbelievable.
charge this unit before you use it. And you have to keep doing that every single time. Now,
Wow.
if you're out for a weekend camping and you buy a big enough unit and you fully charge it,
Right.
maybe you never realize that's a problem. But if a weekend becomes a week or two,
Yep.
and you're going, hey, I got a problem. See, I was
Yep.
going to plug in my refrigerator into my unit, and I did, but it keeps pulling power out. And when I plug in my solar panel, it doesn't accept it. Why doesn't it
Wow.
accept it? Because your unit is one that it can't take power in and put power out at the same time.
That's crazy.
Ours do that. The second
And
most important question to ask
yeah,
gets back to the solar. If you go out and buy a 3,000 or a 4,000 watt solar generator, which is what they all call them, and you buy a 100-watt panel, thinking, oh, that's plenty, I'm just going to top it off. Okay. And you have that weekend power outage because you live in Texas or you live in Florida and they have a hurricane or whatever. And you go, okay, I'm going to plug in my refrigerator to keep all that expensive meat cold. And you wake up the next morning and the wife says, oh my gosh, James, guess what? We're down to 60% power left. Go plug in the panel. Well, hopefully you have one that you can plug in the panel and still have the refrigerator plugged in at the same time, hopefully.
right.
But if you were smart enough to do that research and ask that second question, how many panels can I plug in?
That's a good question.
Because some of these big units only accept up to 200-watt panels.
That's not enough for much of anything.
Well, okay, if you're slow charging and you got all weekend,
For a
that's
cell phone,
fine.
sure. Yeah.
Okay, I mean, that's fine. 200 watts coming in, great. But it's not going to fully charge a 4,000 or a 6,000 watt unit real quick.
Right.
Well, with a lot of the Goal Zero product we have,
Yeah.
you can have 4 panels daisy chained together
That's huge.
and have 800 watts going into the unit.
Wow.
Now, I'm not saying everybody's going to go out and buy 4 200-watt panels, but just know that if you buy a 200-watt panel and you decide, it's not fast enough, I want to charge faster. Okay,
Right.
buy a second one. Plug them together, plug one unit into your Goal Zero Yeti unit, and guess what? Now you got 400 watts coming in. By the way, as a point of reference, out of your normal AC outlet, it's around 600 watts. So if you want to equal your AC outlet in terms of speed and power to recharge, you need 3 200-watt panels.
Wow.
If you go
Wow.
beyond that, then you're faster than your wall
Right.
out.
Makes
Now,
sense.
again, our units are set up so you can have multiple forms of power input. So I can sit there and say, okay, let's say I have a 200-watt panel. I plug it in. Oh, and then the electric comes back on. I can plug in my electric and get 600 plus the 200 that's outside with my solar panel. And now I have 800 watts going into the unit to recharge it because maybe I'm going to lose power again in an hour.
Wow.
I don't know. Power companies aren't exactly great after you've lost power because of a hurricane, tornado, whatever. It sometimes goes on and off, sometimes for days, but I'll take it when I can get it. And again, those are the kinds of things that we look into because not only is it our business, but it's kind of our life. I get so tired of hearing about, they found the remains of so-and-so, and services will be held next Saturday at such and such a church. And I look up and I find that this guy or gal was absolutely in range of a repeater. They had no radio. They didn't take they found some guy yesterday in California that had been lost for 9 or 10 days.
Wow.
The guy should be charged with a stupid hiker law. You go out there and you have all this equipment, but no way of communication.
Right.
So I'm a big proponent of that. And I think it's incredibly inept.
Yeah.
I understand mistakes can happen. I get that. I'm not perfect either.
We're human.
Walk on water.
We're human.
Yes, we're all human. And as long as we're breathing air, mistakes can happen. So I'm not saying that, I'd hang the people, but I'm just saying working with so many search and rescue teams like I do, I see the toil that takes on them, especially in the worst case scenario where they find the remains of the person they've been looking for 2 weeks. But
in hindsight,
even when there's a good outcome, it's still not over because those people lost hundreds of hours of their own personal time that they'll never get back. Some of them could have had accidents out there looking for people. That's not unheard of. I like the fact now that a lot of the SAR teams here, when they send in their people, they've kind of standardized on, a particular radio for a particular need. And I tell them, hey, we sell cheaper stuff.
Yes.
But if my life depended on it, I wouldn't take the cheaper stuff. There's a reason why Chevy Vegas aren't entered at Indy. Yeah. They're not going to win. If my wife or son or my own life depends on something, I want to know that it works. I want to know that it's the best thing I can get my hands on. And I'm talking within reason. I'm not saying go out and buy a $5,000 handheld. A $240 handheld today is our most expensive handheld we have. Now, every time we reorder and shipping cost goes up and the tariff goes up and, contrary to what the current administration might say, we haven't fixed our supply chain. It's still a mess.
Bidenomics.
Oh, yeah. When I pay, I have to prepay for my radios, even the ones that are designed for us. I have to prepay the factory to build them. And it takes between a month and a half to 2 months to get my product in after I've paid for it.
Wow.
And that's the supply chain. And every time I order, things go up.
Yeah. Considering lives are at stake, there are so many of these are financially viable options. We're talking about lives. That's invaluable. And we just need to help educate people on what's available and what might be best for your situation. And that's where I see what you've created here. It's beyond valuable. It's the one-stop shop. It is the solution, and it's where people can get the answers they've been looking for without spending hours and hours and hours and trying to become an expert in researching when it's just like, where do you even start? So,
but see, one of the things we do is we also work with the people who are experts in other areas, like the SAR teams I've mentioned. Several of them have said to me, hey, Craig, why don't you program our SAR rescue channel frequency into your templates for your radios, for
Mm,
your end users? I was kind of surprised when they asked me to do that. I thought,
yeah.
wow, okay. Can I? Yeah, I absolutely can. I'm curious as to why you want that. And it made perfect sense once they explained it to me. They said, number one, 90% of our people are volunteers. They don't like getting called out on weekends because they had planned to go boating on the lake or whatever. And now they're out hauling their butts, hill and dale, over the Superstition Mountains or whatever, looking for people that aren't adequately prepared. But
Yeah.
if they have one of your radios, it'll make it so much easier for us.
Mm,
So I now program in the SAR team channel into the radio. That
wow.
was their suggestion. Not I didn't come up with that. I think it's brilliant, but
Yeah.
I didn't come up with that. They did. And they
Wow.
said, not only does it get our people home faster, but since so many people that go out there don't even understand east from west, a famous rescue that happened. The lady said she didn't know what direction to go back to town. She knew town was east, but she didn't know what direction was east. She was out there for
Wow.
4.5 days. I'm thinking
Holy
when the sun
smoke.
comes up, maybe that's the direction you go. But hey,
It,
um,
I, I get it.
but
Yeah.
but getting the SAR team to actually be on the radio where you can say, okay, I see a helicopter, he's flying away from me. And the guy in SAR tells the helicopter pilot to turn left. And then the person, guy or gal, says, okay, now they're kind of parallel to me. Have them turn again. And now they're heading towards me. Okay, I can't pop smoke because I didn't bring that, but he's getting closer and closer and closer. And now okay, he just passed over me. And now the pilot does a little circle and says, okay, they're here. And
Wow.
now the person gets rescued, maybe with a broken leg or whatever, and they're
Yeah.
out of there.
Yeah.
And having that ability to help not only the SAR team members, because now they're home earlier, but also the individual involved that was at least smart enough to take a radio of some type with them. And that's why it's kind of important that, in order to get to the SAR team, you can't go to Walmart and buy a radio that works. It won't. You can't buy a normal Baofeng radio and have it on their frequency unless
Wow.
unless you pay somebody like me $35 to unlock it.
Wow.
And then you find out the SAR team frequency to program in. Okay. I mean, could it be? Yeah, you could make it work, but we make it work and test it to make sure you don't have to.
Right
So
out the gate. That is incredibly valuable, Craig. And I
it's
must
just one
admit,
of the things we do.
yeah, I must admit we're flying blind. This recorder didn't hit, so I don't know how deep we're in. We're in uncharted waters right here on this cast, but I'm pretty sure we've really captured. This was an insane icebreaker. You brought a lot of value, a lot of things for people to check out. Once again, I just challenge the listeners to check out offgridgear2go.com. It'll be in the links below. Be sure to throw in unmuzzled chat if you're able to in the promo code. If not, just do it in the notes upon checkout. Like Craig said, he would honor those discounts and any of his products you may have questions on. I mean, he really has done the research and brought a huge level of expertise in vetting things, because the reality of survival gear, you get what you pay for, right? And you've vetted out on an affordable scale and just balanced everything, but to reliable function. And that is important. That could save lives. So I don't know if you have any other burning desires?
No, I mean, we could go. I mean, I'm Irish and Scotch, which means, I could talk all night about this stuff. I'm really
Right.
into, off-grid preparedness. But by the same token, I know your time is valuable, and I know the listeners' time is valuable. So I mean, we can end it right now. But I would
Okay.
just say that if you look at the banner behind me, Off Grid Gear to Go was our original website, and that still has a lot of very informative articles on it.
Okay.
And it's got a link that goes from the old website, Off Grid Gear, to the new website above it, which is Off Grid Gear. So
Okay.
you can go from RF gear to Off Grid Gear. My wife likes the word gear better than stuff. Um, so,
Okay.
but yeah, give us a call. I mean, we'll see you at a show. We do a lot of shows.
Awesome. You clearly are an expert in the communication realm, and you blew my mind at the show I saw you at. And I could just see you're helping a great many folk out there. So I want to applaud you for that.
Well,
This
thank you.
this not only is going to end up a solution for the listeners, I'm definitely gonna get my family, people, I'm associated with, in on this so we can up our preparations together. And we've been looking for a solution like this. So I really hope that the listeners can see how simplified you've made it for us all. So I'm grateful for that. And I thank you for your time.
Well, you're welcome.
And we'll be sure to add all the links in the description below. Let me just do a quick sign off here, folks. Thank you so much for tuning into this episode on A Muzzled Chat. We don't know what is coming around the corner, but these preparations are obviously crucial. I want to take a second and plug our affiliation, EMP Shield. It, to me, is one of those just no-brainers. At minimum, get an EMP shield on at least one of your vehicles. You could click on the link below. You'll get $50 off every single one of their products. And let's continue to transition over to Patriot Mobile, because they are doing big things on behalf of our freedom and our veterans and everything. So information is not going to hurt you. Click their link below or simply call them. Use the promo code unmuzzled. They'll take care of you. They'll waive your fees, but be sure to give them a call today. Other than that, we appreciate your time and joining us today. God bless you. God bless America. Till next time, take care.
Amen. Thanks, James.